Bulls, one coin.
In our Two Bulls, One Coin segment every single week, we like to bring you a brand new project to consider whether or not it is legit or if it's shit. So, this week in Two Bulls, One Coin, we've got Aavegotchi, which, if you look at it on the surface, Aavegotchi is a really interesting project. It's kind of combining both elements of DeFi and NFTs. But if you look on the screen right now, if you're joining us on YouTube, important to mention, you are seeing the logo and it looks very memey to begin with. It is an 8-bit ghost on a vaporwave sunset. Doesn't get much more memey than that. But let's dive into a little bit about this project. Chris, why don't you take it away?
All right. So the name of this project, Aavegotchi, and I'm sure if you take a second to think about it, you would probably put two and two together that it sounds a little similar to Tamagotchi. For those of you who don't know, Tamagotchis were essentially digital pets in the early 2000s that you'd collect on these small handheld devices. You'd feed it, take care of it, it'd sleep, all that fun stuff, right? Huge deal back when we were growing up. Everyone had them, they were everywhere. And now you have Aavegotchi. And like Steve is saying, right, it's an 8-bit avatar on a vaporwave sunset. That is the logo. And it looks a little similar to Tamagotchis, which were also 8-bit. And that's the general art style, right? It's clearly trying to mimic that, get some nostalgia bucks, right? But there's a cool aspect to it in that they've essentially decentralized Tamagotchi. They've built out their platform, their NFT game space to be similar. You can trade them. There are in-game collectibles, so different wearable items that you can give to your Aavegotchi that will increase its rarity and also increase some of the other great aspects of this. For example, just holding your NFT, playing with it will actually reward you with interest-bearing attributes and tokens for your Aavegotchi. And the more rare your Aavegotchi is, so if you have certain collectibles, wearables on, that could increase your interest rate even more, change your reward payout. So it's very much a play to earn type game. We touched on it a little earlier when we were discussing EA, pay to win versus play to earn. This is play to earn. The more you play, the more you'll unlock. And the more you unlock and play, it increases the value of your avatar. And so I think it's a really cool idea. This is the direction that a lot of these NFT plays that are trying to gamify their art are trying to go, and this is one that seems to be working because they have an active player base.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing that is really curious about this is like we've seen this trend start to pop up about what people call NFT-fi, right? They're gamifying decentralized finance in a way. So the way that you should think about this is like if you were to go buy an Aavegotchi NFT, regardless of what its rarity is or what any of its individual traits look like, that NFT is basically attaching like an escrow account to it where you can start to develop collateralized stake. So you can essentially add onto it a whole bunch of tokens and it's held in this escrow account. That is the first attribute basis that it has. Then from there, you have individual traits. The traits themselves, we're not going to get into specifically, but they're what directly influence the rarity of your Aavegotchi and how it performs in game. Then on top of that, where the ghost token really comes in, which again is the true token of Aavegotchi, is with these wearables that are essentially child NFTs of your Aavegotchi NFT, because it's like you're giving it a sword or you're giving it a Bob Marley t-shirt, something like that, where it's going to then start to affect that in-game performance metric again. So each of them in this example basically have two types of value. You have intrinsic value in what is held in the escrow address, and you also have rarity based value when you look at the actual individual traits. So on the surface, I find this really, really interesting. And I think that if we look back historically, this is probably one of the very first projects that is deploying a legitimate NFT-fi model. So let's dive a little bit into this real quick on the basis of a graphic. So again, if you're joining us on YouTube, You're able to see this right now, but we also do recast this through our podcast, just through the Cryptocurrent podcast. If you would like to come and view this, come join us on YouTube. But again, if you want to listen to this back in the car later and you don't want to, feign injury by watching video in the car, you can always follow our podcast and get our latest episodes whenever they drop live. So you have to think of this like an onion model. So at the very base level, you have the A token collateral that is sitting in escrow. Then as you get out from that, you have the traits that are all kept on chain. It's not like these are, hosted in a centralized space. They are always going to remain decentralized. On top of that layer, that's where these child NFTs, the wearables, live, and those can modify traits. From there, you then have the actual UI layer. So basically, the visual representation of your interaction with the Aavegotchi, your ability to play with it, doing all of the things that call on the traits that are lower into the onion. Then lastly, it's putting all of it in together to the true playable blockchain avatar that you actually see at the end of the day. It's a really interesting take on how to deploy this sort of thing. But if you were ever interested in deploying an asset that has an interest bearing mechanism within it, this is a really great chart to be able to like view and study so that you can deploy yours in a practical way. But I think that kind of gives us enough of a way to dive into the Ghost token. So, Chris, I'm going to hand this over to you. Tell us a little bit about this ERC20.
So the Ghost token pretty much functions like all other tokens you'd be familiar with, right? It's the underlying coin essentially that is providing value to the game. It's what you use to, transact within this essential games universe, right? That's the whole point of the Ghost token. You're using this to level up your Aavegotchi, make your wearables nicer, right? Buy new collectibles, things like that. Its entire function is as a store of value, right? Which we talk about a lot. This is not something you're buying and holding. This is something that has actual value that is used within this game. Okay. And I mean, it seems very cool, right? We talked a little earlier about how there's interest bearing aspects of this. The Ghost token is what is paid out in that, right? So the better your Aavegotchi, to get there, right, you need to spend this Ghost token. The better your Aavegotchi is, the more interest you earn, and then the more you can kind of dump back in. And the interesting thing about this to me is they also have some real game aspects, right? Like this is the project so far we've described is just gamified, right? There are fun things you can do to make your NFT better, but they've also added actual games that reward you. So you can play, little mini games that could range from a lot of different things, right? Just imagine a mini game on your phone or something. That's essentially what they've developed. And by playing those, completing those challenges, by winning the games, you'll earn more Ghost tokens. And then by getting more Ghost tokens, you can buy more collectibles. And I hope you see where I'm going with this, because it seems to me, Steve, and I'm interested in your take, but it seems to be kind of that combination between play to earn and pay to win, which we talked about with EA earlier.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to say it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily equate it to pay to win. And that's just because like there are ways for you to earn Ghost token that don't require you to own a more expensive, rare, premium Aavegotchi. So you can earn Ghost through rarity farming. Like there's an actual like farming mechanism where you can get APY on like staking your asset. And also through the winning of these mini games that Chris mentioned a minute ago. There is also a divide there that needs to be quickly made. The community in this project is very engaged. Okay, like they're one of the most actively engaged communities in all of NFT land. So they're actively developing community-led mini games. One of the best of which that I saw earlier today, which I need to mention, is Reverse Pac-Man. If you think about that again, you're playing with a little ghost avatar. Like this is the funniest thing ever. So you're taking on the role of the ghosts in Pac-Man, and you're chasing Pac-Man, and you're basically competing against, whatever, like 6 other ghosts to see who can get Pac-Man first. I mean, to me, like I think that's hysterical. But It's a lot of fun to actually go and play it. You can go demo it if you want to, but they're also doing official mini games that do pay out Ghost. So there is more opportunity then for you to go buy portals, which again is what allows you to play with your Aavegotchi. You can go buy more wearables to enhance your Aavegotchi, or you can go buy realm parcels, which is like literally their own metaverse of like what they're developing. You can go buy parcels of land in the Aavegotchi realm. It's all really quite interesting and very well thought out. So as we go forward a little bit, again, we already mentioned this. It's currently playable, which not a lot of projects can actually say. And I think that's a huge thing to make sure everybody's aware of. If you're doing research into an NFT project or a gaming project, playability is a massive factor. If they're just showing you demo tapes, you can be duped really quickly because those gaming assets can be bought for dirt cheap through what is it? Unreal Engine has a marketplace
Oh
or something
yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Unreal Engine is Valve. Valve is a major software studio, AAA game developer. Unreal Engine, I think, is Epic. Unreal Engine is their open source game development engine. Um, and interestingly enough, whenever they release new versions of Unreal Engine, they actually create essentially game trailers for it to showcase all it can do. Um, and so that is what Unreal Engine is. And what Steve was saying is that, you know, essentially you can go and just buy, you can buy the avatars, you can buy the art that makes up the background, and essentially build out a game trailer and make it look like you have something when in reality you don't. And
yeah,
that's something that makes me very hesitant about a lot of these metaverse and gaming plays in crypto. One thing I do really like about Aavegotchi is they not only have a working demo, but they have an active community and developer base that is consistently improving on and adding to the product they currently have in play. And I really like that.
yeah. So with that being said, again, if you go up onto their site, you can read more into their roadmap. I really do recommend it if you are ever at all interested. If you're ever at all interested, there we go. That's how English works. If you're ever at all interested in investing in the Ghost token or holding your own, little bag of Ghost token, or even just buying your own Aavegotchi NFT, definitely check out the roadmap and the team. Their roadmap is very comprehensive and ambitious, but it does all seem like it's like well within the realm of possibility that they could deliver on all of this in the timeline that they're providing, which is really cool and not common. The last piece is that you need to also be looking at their tokenomics model. We're not going to get into that today because, again, this is a very, very complex project, and we don't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of technical information. But their tokenomics are the reason why they now have this phenomenal looking chart. And Chris, you are the better TA of the two of us. I want you to kind of dive into this a little bit because they've been around since I believe it was like October of 2020, and the trend on this chart is just really, really good.
It's this is this is a phenomenal chart. Like this, if you're in crypto, what Aavegotchi has for a chart. So if you're with us on YouTube, you're seeing it now. If you're not, and you're listening on Spotify, just look up Aavegotchi, go to Coin Gecko, Coin Market Cap, wherever you get your charts from, and look at Aavegotchi. GHST is what it trades under. Look at their chart. It is beautiful. You're seeing, steady price, and then you see a spike, and then you'll see a dip after the spike where it's going to hold and then go up again and dip down and then hold and then increase and then dip a little and then hold and increase. And if you're kind of picking up what I'm putting down, this is exactly what we see with Bitcoin, right? And this is what we want to see with Bitcoin whenever we talk about it is every time there's a new peak, obviously, the next step is that it's going to dip. And a big part of valuing a lot of coins is finding those support levels. And what Aavegotchi's chart is showing us is that after every peak, yes, it dips, but its next level of support is above the previous one, which means that although it's going up and down, it is trending upward and trending upward consistently. And now, though, I do want to mention for anyone who is more statistically minded or technically knowledgeable, one interesting thing that we love to see, and this is like blew my mind because I hadn't seen this ever, is if you take Aavegotchi's chart and you take it out of the normal view and you put it into a logarithmic view, the chart is almost identical, which, for those who don't know, is incredibly rare. You do not see this happen very often, and is a big deal because it's essentially reinforcing that the way Aavegotchi's token price and value is trending is very, very good. So
I mean,
I'm going to turn this back over to Steve so he can break down his final thoughts on this for you. But what I would say is do your own research. I'm very skeptical about gaming plays. However, this is a play that has a very positive outlook for me. One of the biggest things you want in any game space or game universe is you want a solid product that you can actually play. That's first and foremost. But barely missing out on the number one spot is having a committed team of developers and community that want to see the game succeed, that are going to continuously roll out content and continuously be active members. And that's what we're seeing here. So do your own research. But Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think to wrap this all up with a bow, the thing that I want people to take away from this is that gaming is a very rapidly developing space. It's becoming one of the things in blockchain that is most eyed and most spoken about. So, to echo Chris, make sure you're doing your own research. But I am very, very bullish about crypto gaming and crypto NFTs and the metaverse. All of those topics are things that I am personally a lot more bullish on. So I typically will end up doing a much greater degree of my research into these types of projects before I ever would consider investing in them. And again, don't hear what we're not saying, right? We are not telling you to invest in this. We are telling you that on a fundamental level, a lot like this project checks a lot of boxes. So do what you will with it. We're just here to give you info. But for my money, I would say this is a project worth trusting. So I'm probably going to do a little bit more of my own digging into it later on, try to get in touch with the team a little bit, ask a few more questions. But from everything that I see, this is a very, very legit project. So that is two bulls, one coin. Verdict is not a shit coin, not a shit coin in the slightest. So with that being said, again, if you are new to our channel, please make sure that you're commenting, liking, and subscribing. Let us know what you think of this content. What are your thoughts on Aavegotchi? What are your thoughts on everything else that we've talked about today? Is there something that you would like to see featured on Two Bulls, One Coin in the future? Please let us know in the comments, but also make sure that whether you're listening to us on Recast through your favorite podcast platform, make sure you're subscribed. But also, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe there and click that bell to make sure that you know when we are ever coming online with a new live show.